I think he did the right thing on China. I'm not for trade wars. They're dangerous. However, China is more so. And Donald Trump is the only one that has been willing to stand up to China. When we had George Bush in office, we kept saying, what are you doing? And he would just, oh, you know what? Okay, so they're poisoning our dog food. Yeah, they're also making all of our medicine. Almost all antibiotics are made in China. That's not a good thing.
China has a plan. Make countries overly reliant on its products and then exploit that dependence for global political control. And I'm not just talking about steel or mining, plastics, no. Experts are now warning that the U.S. is becoming too reliant on China for our medicine.
No doubt that they would consider weaponizing their dominance of the pharmaceuticals market if they felt that that would give them an advantage over us strategically.
And the FDA is estimating that 80% of the active ingredients found in some of our most common medicines come from other countries. And the biggest supplier of all? China. Joining me now, author of the book China RX, Exposing the Risks of America's Dependence on China for Medicine. Rosemary, I confess, I have been following the China quest for global domination for 25 years or so, ever since the WTO debate, all that.
Sure.
But I did not know the extent to which we are dependent in our country on communist China for basic elements of our medicines. Tell us.
So if your child has an ear infection,
Which mine has had many times, by the way.
And if you've given them an antibiotic, it probably comes from China. If you've gone to the dentist and you've gotten an antibiotic, it probably comes from China. And what's even worse, after the anthrax attacks, that event is, the anniversary is coming up real soon. Where do we get the medicine from to treat anthrax exposure? We had to get the ingredients from China for those medicines.
How does this make sense on any level? We're dealing with China cheating on every major precept of the World Trade Organization rules for going on for years. They steal our intellectual property. They stole 50 million personnel files from us and that big data breach. And now this. And so the FDA has issued multiple recalls of this generic Valsartan, which is a blood pressure drug.
Yeah, millions of Americans were taking that medicine, and it turns out it had a cancer-causing impurity in it that's used to make rocket fuel. And this went to our veterans, it went to our military. We've got to gain control back over our medicine.
So the way we deal with this, Rosemary, is to bring back manufacturing to the United States, or only allow manufacturing in countries whose processes we trust? I mean, do we go in there and inspect the plants in China? Are we inspecting, or are they allowing us?
The FDA goes in and inspects the plants, but the problem that they're facing is that they're having to approve products to come into this country even though they don't meet our standards. Why? Because they're concerned about a shortage in this country. That's how dependent we are on China.
Now, why is it that we don't manufacture more here? Explain how that all happens.
Sure, well, the generic drugs, they're cheaper. Well, what China did, they cheat. They cheat on trade. And they cheated in gaining control over our antibiotics. And so that's how they have a chokehold. They drove out all the US, European, and even Indian producers of our antibiotics. That's why your kid is getting an antibiotic from China for ear infection.
Well, so you don't really need to fire a shot.
Right.
Not saying that they necessarily would, it probably wouldn't be in their interest right now, to have a devastating effect on America's health.
That's right.
And well-being across the board, from children to the elderly to people who are middle-aged. It's not just antibiotics, it's a whole host of drugs. Let's put up a scroll of the drugs that are actually covered by this concern of China manufacture. It's a lot. Chemotherapy drugs, I took those ones.
Sure.
Fantastic. So maybe that's why I have so much energy. It's rocket fuel inside.
Yeah, you don't have to fire a missile to take America down. All you have to do is withhold their medicines.
And how do consumers here in the United States know if what they're using is at least in part manufactured in China?
They don't.
There's no way for us to know. As consumers of medicine.
There is no way to know. You can try to find out. There was legislation to try to put on the label where it comes from, but that was killed.
So what do we need to do? We need to bring the manufacturing back to the United States.
Right.
Period.
We need to diversify. It's like your portfolio. You want to diversify. Don't put all of our eggs in one basket.
This makes me very uncomfortable. And guys, again, I will say this. I've been studying China for many years. I never focused on this aspect. You taught us all something tonight, Rosemary. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
for what
Laura.
you're doing.